So Shaffie Weru was summarily dismissed last week, and he has subsequently issued a demand letter demanding for 21 million. So I want us to interrogate what constitutes unfair termination. So a termination is said to be unfair, one, if the reason that has been given is not valid, or if the reason is not fair compared to your conduct, compatibility for the organization, and capacity. So if the reason that's given is not fair, or if you've been terminated unfairly based on the conduct or compatibility or your capacity, or if it was unprocedural, then it will be deemed to be unfair. So what is deemed to be the fair procedure? I think under section 41(2) of the Employment Act, it says even if someone is summarily dismissed, he ought to be called in and to be given something called a fair hearing. Fair hearing is hinged on the natural laws of justice. The Latin, they say, audi autarem patem, that you shall not be condemned unheard, and indeed no one should be condemned unheard. So you ought to be given hearing. So what Radio Africa or Homeboys ought to have done was call Shaffie Weru after the unfortunate comments and say, hey, we feel that these comments were inappropriate in the circumstances, and not only that, we are losing sponsorships and sponsors because of these comments. So we feel that is a fundamental breach of your contract, because your contract ought to bring us work, not take away work from us. And also, based on the comments itself, we feel that there was an element of gross misconduct, and for those reasons, we feel that we should terminate your contract. And then now give Shaffie Weru a chance to respond and say, hey, this is how I feel this whole situation went by. And also inform Shaffie Weru that he ought to bring in a representative into that meeting. And all this ought to be minuted. So after it's minuted, then they arrive at a determination that to terminate Shaffie Weru, then it will be said that the whole process was not unfair. But how they did it, they summarily dismissed Shaffie Weru. There was no hearing, no side of Shaffie Weru's story was given, so they would be liable. So in the event the court rules that you were unfairly terminated, then you are amenable to be compensated up to 12 months salary of up to 12 months of your salary. So Shaffie Weru earns 680,000. So if the court were to be lenient to the most the limit of the law, they would award 680,000 times 12. Right? Why? Because Radio Africa didn't take a step back and just follow the thing procedurally. So if you're there, if you're an employee, this is not just applicable to Shaffie Weru. It can be applicable to any employee, so long as the employer came in and just told you you're fired without calling you into a room, hearing your story, giving you a chance to explain yourself in tandem with natural laws of justice. Then there's a cause, there's a claim there, and you might end up being awarded up to 12 months of your salary. So that is for unfair termination alone. We've not even talked about the 1 month notice of salary. We've not talked about overpayment, payment of overtime if you're working for long hours, more than 52 hours a week. We've not talked about gratuity if your contract provided for that. Service pay if you've not been paid NSSF and NHIF. So there's a whole lot of these things that your employer needs to pay you on top of paying you damages from fair termination. So if you're there and you're an employee who's going through this turmoil, your employer has been unfair to you, we'll be happy to listen to your story and we'll be happy to help. Thank you. Kindly subscribe to our YouTube channel.